general información. On pages 7 and 8, we're going to go over some general rules, general how-tos about how Spanish operates. So when you're spelling Spanish words, the only letters that can be doubled up are R, L, C, and E. And spelling will always count in Spanish. Now, a single R sounds different than a double R. So if you hear somebody say burrito or perro, you know that there is a double R. Same thing with L. A single L sounds different than a double L. So if you hear somebody say llama or silla, you know that that is a double L. A double C has two sounds. The first C sounds like a K. The second C sounds like an S. Dirección, atracción. So note that two C's together have both the C sounds. And a double E, which is the most rare, E's sound like A's, so you're going to pronounce it both times. Leer or creer. There are no PHs in Spanish. You're going to use F anytime you have the F sound in Spanish. So, elephant is elefante. Replace the PH with an F, and you're going to add an E. Teléfono, you replace the PH with an F, add an accent over that second E, and put an O at the end. Accents go over vowels, and not every word has an accent, and there are never more than one vowel or accent in any word. Tildes go over N's only and are not always in every word. And there's never more than one tilde or one accent per word, and rarely, I mean rarely, will you have a word that has an accent and a tilde. Now the point of an accent is to accent or accentuate a vowel sound. So you can hear the difference between papa, P-A-P-A, and papa, P-A-P-A with an accent. Tildes, the N has a different sound when it has a tilde over it. U-N-A is pronounced una. U-N with a tilde A is uña. There are several ways that you can pluralize words in English. You can add an S, you can add an ES, you can keep the word the same, you can change a Y to an IES, you can change like octopus to octopi. There are several different ways. In Spanish, there are two ways. If the word ends in a vowel, A, E, I, O, or U, you add an S. If the word ends in a consonant, anything other than a vowel, add your ES. And those rules are 100% true for every word you want to make plural. Now, there is one difference or one addition to this pluralization rule. If a Spanish word ends in the letter Z and you want to make it plural, you're going to change the Z to a C, and then you're going to add your ES because both Z and a C are consonants. I can only think of 3 words in Spanish 1 that we will learn that will apply. Again, the word has to end in the letter Z. All right, this is really difficult for most Spanish 1 students to grasp, but it's very important. All Spanish nouns, which are people, places, or things, are either masculine or feminine. Now the rules are, if a word ends in an A, it's usually a feminine word. La mesa. If a word ends in an O, it's usually masculine. El gato. If a word ends in an E, the best guess is masculine, but it can also be feminine. El restaurante is masculine, but because the word estudiante is a noun for a person, it's el estudiante if it's a boy student, and it's la estudiante if it's a female student. And if a word ends in a consonant, it's usually masculine, el papel. Now, if I put an asterisk next to a word, it's telling you that it looks like it should be feminine, in this case, but it's an exception, so it's a masculine word. So mapa is masculine, Just like radio is feminine because it's an exception to the O rule, clase is feminine because it's kind of an exception to the E rule, and ciudad is an exception to the consonant rule, and it is feminine. There aren't very many exceptions. I would say on a list of like 25 words, there might be 3. Okay, so this does not happen very often. All right, start to recognize these suffixes. ADO or ADA translates to ED in English. ENTO or ENTE in Spanish is just ENT in English. ITO or ITA, ITO or ITA, is a term of endearment. Mente, M-E-N-T-E, translates to LY in English. DAD, D-A-D, translates to TY in English, and it's always a masculine feminine exception. Sion, whether it's C-I-O-N or S-I-O-N, always has an accent over the O. It translates as shun, and it's always a masculine feminine exception. Yendo and ando is if you want to make a verb into an ing. Instead of run, you want to write running. Instead of eat, you want to write eating. Instead of study, you want to write studying. We will spend one class period on these verb endings, so they're not that important and you don't use them that often. What we will spend a lot of time on is if you see a word in Spanish that ends in AR, ER, or IR, that indicates that it's a verb, and a verb is an action. CTO translates to CT. So on page 8, there are some examples. Go through and try to figure these out, and do those examples on page 8, and you can email me if you have questions.